Welcome to the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast with your host, Brandon Seigel. I'm a published author, speaker, entrepreneur, and private practice strategist dedicated to transforming the way that healthcare functions. This podcast is all about empowering you to create the change you want to see. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast. I am so excited today because I am welcoming Erin Clemens to this episode. So Erin and I are going to be breaking down some of the strategies that has helped her reclaim her time in her own private practice. I know that private practice owners are literally run where I just spoke with one and they're spending 60, 70 hours a week. I just talked to one whose husband was like, help her. She just spent 10 hours on Sunday. Brandon, what is going on? And so there's no better topic with no better person than you, Erin. Erin, why don't you welcome yourself to the podcast? Give a little background for our audience so they know who you are, where you come from, and kind of what brought you to your time mastery.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brandon. So my name is Erin Clemens, and I am a pediatric occupational therapist. I own a pediatric clinic in the Northern Virginia area that I've had here since 2010. And we have PT, OT, and speech. And so I kind of went down this time management journey about, I would say, about 10 to 12 years ago it's been. And the reason why it was not a planned situation for me. I just kind of got to a point in my lifestyle that I realized all the things that I was doing, I could just no longer sustain. And Brandon, would you like me to go into all of those details?
I mean, you can just, break it down
Okay.
just so that our
All right.
audience kind of gets to know you and
Sure.
driving change, because I think a lot of people don't recognize that. They think change is not possible, but change is a decision. And so anything you want to share just to give that backstory of what that driving point was where you're like, this no longer serves me.
Yeah. And I like what you said, Brandon. Change is a decision. And I think sometimes we feel that we are not as in control of our lives and our time as we think we are. But the truth is, we actually have a lot more control than we think we do. And so, yeah, I found myself about, gosh, I think it's been like 10 or 12 years or so. My son was in preschool, and at that time I was trying to build up my private practice. And so I was also managing my own caseload as I was trying to hire more therapists and build my team. I was also a an adjunct professor for our local community college teaching. I was teaching 6 hours of lecture and 6 hours of lab every week. And then I was also serving as the president of our state OT association. So I was doing a lot. I was doing like the equivalent of two full-time jobs. And the problem that I found myself in was I loved everything that I was doing. And so it wasn't easy for me to figure out what I needed to remove from my plate. But there was no like one defining moment where I had a breakdown or anything dramatic like that. It was more so I just came to this very like a quiet realization that everything I was doing was just not going to be sustainable. And even though I loved everything I was doing, most importantly, I was missing out on time with my family and watching my son grow. And even though we spent a lot of time together, I didn't always feel like I was fully present in what I was doing. And so I just realized, gosh, I've got to make a change because what I'm doing, I just can't continue to sustain this for a very long time. And so that's kind of what brought me down this path of time management, productivity, and really kind of rethinking how I managed my time and what I was going to do about it.
Yeah. So you had this breaking point, we'll call it. And it seems like the breaking point was just this idea of hey, I'm not able to achieve the desired outcome that I want in the time that I have. Something's got to shift. And so would you say that it started with reprioritization, or like what was that starting point? Once you recognize there's a problem, I don't have enough time, I have all this stuff, like how did you solve that? Like what made you go about that next sequencing of, okay, I've got all these things I want to do. Is it a priority problem? Is it how I'm spending my time? Is it needing more resources? Like what was your kind of way of problem solving this?
Yeah, all of the above. But I I am by nature a problem solver. And so I took a step back and was like, okay, I'm the type of person that will apply what I learn. And so I personally learn best through books. And so I just started getting all the books I could on time management, honestly. And I started just implementing strategies. I also understand that it can't, for me personally, and probably for a lot of people out there, we can't make all of these changes all at once because that's also not sustainable. So I knew that I needed to just pick one thing at a time that I could work on and that I could tweak and that I could change. And so it really just started with taking an assessment of my time and what are my values and kind of bringing it back into, okay, our lives are short. We don't know how long we have on this earth. So, what do I value most? And now, what am I doing to fill the hours in my days? And is that in alignment with my values and with my goals? And that was my starting point. And then, as I read more books and learned more and applied more, that's when I started to go down different trajectories of delegation and then taking things off my plate, automating things, and just really refining everything that I was learning.
Yeah. It's interesting because you don't know this, but I just got back from a conference. And at this conference, I was talking to different practice owners, and they all look like their eyes are at the back of their head. They all look like they literally are like, there's not enough time in the day. There's so many things I need to do. And like one of the things I recognize is that people think that the outcome of growth must occur by investment of more time. I feel like they forget the why of why they're doing what they do. And so I specifically recall I was meeting with two practice owners, and both practice owners were kind of sharing this idea of like there's so much to do, and like you make it sound so easy, and it's like I don't know how anyone gets stuff done and like all this stuff. And I'm like, well, I'm not telling you that you have to do everything I'm saying. I'm saying pick one priority, execute it, get it done. They're like, well, it's not that easy. And then I kind of picked on one practice owner, and she was like, you could just see she was run over by like 10 cars. She just seemed run over. And I said, so let me ask you, you had a thriving practice, you had a location. Were you already feeling like pretty run down? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, and then you chose to open a second location. Was that the right action at the right time? I'm like, you look at all these things. She has young kids. I'm like, honestly, did you need that second location? She's like, no. And I'm like, so what made you invest? Because now you were at 60 hours a week, and then now you're at 80 hours a week. Like at what point? And I just recognized with practice owners there's this piece of like, if I take 10 hours off their plate, they'll replace it with 20. Like, how do you get through? I know you work with a lot of practice owners and put on different education resources and coaching and stuff like that. So tell me, how do you get that practice owner to better identify the value of their time? Because a lot of them don't value their time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think too that we as human beings, we're always comparing ourselves to other people in our industry who are doing what we're doing. And, if this person over here is opening two, three, four locations, well, I must be falling behind because I'm not doing the same thing. And so we have to keep up with the Joneses, right? And in our practice growth. And a lot of times we also hear that if you're not growing, then you're going to be nothing. And so I just, I think that again, we have to really have good insight and that emotional intelligence to step back and think about what what are my values and what are my goals. And we all have 24 hours in a day, 168 hours per week. And so using the excuse of like I don't have time is not a valid excuse. We all have the same amount of time. Time is finite, and there are lots of people out there doing great things who do value their time. And so I think it's a combination of things, Brandon, like building up confidence to value ourselves and our time and digging deeper to see like why do we feel this way?
Well, and it's interesting because I feel like I've been changing in this specifically probably in the last 2 years. I've made conscious effort. I know people don't like it, but like I no longer do a la carte coaching. I was like, I'm sorry, but my time is worth more. Like, if I want to give my time away, I'm going to choose to give my time away. But when I sell my time, it didn't feel good, if that makes sense. And that's something I think I recognize is I'd rather give my time away than sell my time. Like I'd rather find ways for my revenue to be generated that's not directly correlated to my time. And then I utilize my time to build exponentially on that. And I think a lot of people don't always recognize like what do they want? And are there things that I do that are like what I'm going to call like AI virtual assistant value time that I choose to spend my expensive time doing? 100%. And I always say it this way. When I choose to spend my time in that way, that's like me having a big ice cream sundae. It's because it's something that I want that makes me feel good. So when I choose to do all the invoicing via QuickBooks my way, or I choose to do payroll my way versus having my Scott do it, that's me. That's my ice cream sundae time. And that's okay. There's no one that can take that away because that's the freedom of choice. But if I start to complain to Erin saying, I have no time, da, 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 that's when I have to relook and say, is this the best priority? Is this the best case? And it's funny because I thought of this once we started this episode, but this practice I met with this morning, two owners, and one of them's like, you may need to come on site for a week and you may have to watch us and tell us what we're doing and why we're wasting time. And I'm like, I shouldn't need to do that. You can do that. There's time. So I guess one of the things is, what are some time management tools that you utilize that help you maybe evaluate the way that your time is being utilized and make decisions from there?
Yeah, I use a lot of tools. And I think it's important to remember that I've also been studying this from a really long time. And so when I talk to people about this, they're just like, but it's so easy for you. But like I was not an overnight success. Like this is like years in the making to get to this point and I still struggle and I still have to catch myself with what I'm doing with my time. But there's a lot of things that work for me. I mean, I have systems in place that I um, am a little inflexible with um, with going outside of my system. So, like for example, I have like daily systems of checklists and things, and weekly and monthly and quarterly and annually. I do time blocking every single week. I've learned how to respect my time so that if I have a time block of 2 hours to work on a very specific task and something else comes up, I will not just delete that off my schedule. I respect my time and I figure out, okay, if I need to take this off Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock, where can I put this 2 hour block somewhere else? I'm not going to completely delete it. I'm going to move it. And if I don't have room to move it, then this other competing item is just not going to happen. And so, along with that, is learning how to prioritize um, by the day, by the week, and so on and so forth, and not to allow other people's priorities to impact my priorities, to really know, am I just putting out fires, or is there a true emergency that I need to address? Um, I do a lot of planning, and I actually time block my planning. I think planning is key to really effective time management. So, those are some of the things that I put in place. Every quarter, I do time tracking. So, I track my time every in 15-minute increments for 1 week straight. And I do this every quarter because it allows me to see where I have fallen off track and where maybe I've added tasks back on my plate that before I let go and I delegated to somebody else. And why am I now doing them again? What happened here? So, by tracking my time on a regular basis, I can see where I can still delegate more things and where I maybe have put things back on my plate that don't belong. So those are a few of the strategies that I use.
Mhm. And any, like, when it comes to delegation, is there, do you have like a matrix or something that you use for how you evaluate what you are going to delegate and what you aren't? Like, what's your, and who to get that delegation? Like, is there any system you put in place personally in your delegation approach?
Yeah, so I think about what is taking up the most time per day or per week. Again, that's where time tracking really helps me to see where I'm investing a lot of time that maybe does not need my time investment. Um, but to kind of see, like, okay, what's sucking a lot of my time that I don't need to be doing because it doesn't relate back to my goals and my values. I think it's really important to make sure that if we don't know what we're working toward and what we value, it's really hard to figure out what to delegate. So that's one of the things that I do. And then I figure out, so when I do that time tracking each quarter, then I pick my top two things that I am going to delegate to somebody else or something else. And usually it's tasks that, again, take up the most time and are the easiest for me to either create a written process or a video process or just automate in some way. Um, that's kind of how I assess each quarter what I can do and how I can delegate it.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I know you said something earlier and it really resonated because I do find um, it's really true with me, which is this idea of like, I always say, like, bend, don't break. Um, I'm pretty set in my ways. And if I have a specific requirement, I don't bend much on that requirement. And every time I change that, like, I'll give you an example. Like, from the billing company, I'll just give this example. If I say, hey, we won't accept you unless you're ABCD, and then someone comes in and I think like, oh my gosh, it's this great opportunity. Like, just forget the D. Like, ABC is enough. Every time I get burned, every time. And I just recognize that, like, it's so important to have the identity of efficiency, because when we have that identity, we're not only efficient, but we're consistent. And I think consistency is key in today's world. It's how do you show up every day? How do you show up for your kids? How do you show up for your family? How do you show up for your employees? How do you show up for your patients? And so I definitely think understanding, I use, with business, this algorithm. To me, it's about how do we identify the ingredients in proportion to how we want to deliver the outcome or the results in our life. And so, one of the things I guess also I'm curious about is, do you have a set amount of time that you allot for work each week? Are you like, I'm 40 hours, that's it, or I'm 30 hours and that's it? Like, do you identify how much time you give to your business?
I have a goal that I always want to hit. And so I I'm typing, I track everything. So for the past few years, every single day, I've been tracking how much time I actually spend on work on the business, in the business. And so I am consistently between 38 and 42 hours a week. It's rare that I am working more than that per week. If I do, it's some one off kind of event. But I do think that as leaders, it's really important for us to know and understand and be a good role model for, the old thinking of working 60, 80 hours a week like that. That's just not healthy, and it's not sustainable. It doesn't make us better leaders. Like, what are we teaching others and role modeling? We don't need to be working that long. And if we are, I would challenge that with, but what are you doing with your time? If you say that and I was there too, working 60, 80 hours a week, but there's a lot of things that we do with our time that we don't need to be doing with our time. And so, um, I forget your original question because I went down this other pathway here, but um, yeah, I think it's important for.
Sorry, you did answer it, just so you know. The
Okay,
question was
okay,
about, do you have like a set time that you're like, I'm only here and then I'm clocked out. Like I use that clock out mentality. Is there a point where
yeah,
you require yourself to clock out?
no, because I try to have a schedule and make myself available to my team so that they know when I'm available. But I don't have a set schedule of I'm working every Monday from 8 to 6 and every Tuesday from, 10 to 5 or whatever it is. It's really kind of what's convenient for me and what works for my team and what needs to be done in any given week or any given day. And so, but I do try to keep that at no more than 40 to 45 hours a week, on average. Like, for example, I, I think it's important for us to, again, planning is huge for me. And so when I'm looking at my week ahead and I know that my son goes to youth group and it's usually every Sunday and it's in the evenings, but his youth group is like 10 minutes from my office. That is a super convenient time for me to drop him off, come to my office, do a few hours of work, and then go pick him up on a Sunday night. Some people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you want to work on a Sunday night. That's convenient for me and that works. And that's my planning time for the week. So I think it's really important for people to kind of look and see like what naturally fits into your family dynamic and fits into the rhythm of your week that you can just easily integrate work into your life. You and I have had this conversation about this work life balance fallacy. I don't believe in that at all, and I think we're in agreement that it's more of a work life integration. We just can't separate those things. So that's why I think it's really a great idea to look at your family schedule and see how you can integrate work into that's going to fit seamlessly.
Well, and what I've recognized in my own challenges is I need something to drive me to not do work, meaning I actually enjoy my work. So if Tammy takes the kids for the day and I have the house to myself and she says, do anything, my natural tendency is to work. My natural tendency is to like, oh, go work on this, or I'll work on a new job ad, or I'll get into my creative mode. Not like, oh my gosh, I'm going to answer emails and this and that. No, like I put on that creative hat and I do. And one thing that I think has changed my life recently has been that I've found things outside of work that bring me different fulfillment. So even like something that if you had asked me 2 years ago if I would leave work at 3 p.m., I would say no. Almost every day, I leave now at 3 p.m. Eastern so I can go pick up my son from school and take him to baseball. And literally right now, Jonah gets more time from his dad than my wife gets from me. Like it's to that, but I will never get that time back with him. And I recognize that like those things, like my kids and what their hobbies are and how do I relate and how do I take them to those activities and sharing that with them. I have plenty of years where I can write job ads and I can go do all these other things, but these moments in life are precious. And so one of the things that I'm seeing is private practice owners who have young children are so caught up in what they think has to get done that they lose sight on what is meaningful in time. And I literally just had this talk this morning where I said, tell me, what do you financially need to be happy and fulfilled as a family? Like, what's that number? And then how many hours can we justify for you to get there? There's a point where we're just wasting time because we think we're building something that, like, working 100 hours a week on policies and procedures and SOPs, like, it doesn't pencil straight up. And that's where I see it. I think a lot of people, I don't know if you're seeing this in practice owners, but they can spend like literally 40 hours just writing policies and procedures. Just, oh my gosh, I need a policy out how to answer the phone and how to do this and how are you, any recommendations for practice owners who are kind of getting stuck in the muck from the owner's hat of I have to put systems and accountability in place, and it becomes this whole thing. Every time there's a problem, it's a 10-hour policy they have to write.
Yeah, I mean, I think that also kind of goes back to boundaries, respecting your time, and delegating and prioritizing. So I spend a lot of time planning my week and creating my checklist and my to do list.
Mhm.
So if something comes up that week and all of a sudden it's like, oh, we need a policy about this random thing happened, like, but really, we might need that policy. But first thing, is that a priority right now? That we need that policy right now? That I need to remove something from my schedule and carve out an hour of my time to write this policy? And number two, why do I need to be the one to write it? Policies are easy. There's so many other tools we can use to write the policy for us. AI is out there. We don't need to be spending our time doing things like that. Um, and going back to what you said earlier about family, I think that's another important thing for people to realize and come to terms with is that we go through all these different seasons of life, especially with our kids. And when my son was younger, that was just, it seemed like such a competitive professional time for me where like I just felt like if I took a break and didn't do all the things, I was going to miss out. Fear of missing out. And I was going to somehow like be behind my professional peers with work or with life. And gosh, that couldn't have been further from the truth. And now that my son is older, again, I just kind of like weave things in there. So I love that I am able to drive him to swim practice every day. And that's like 25, 30 minutes away one way. Like that's great bonding time for us in the car. And then while he's at swim, I'm sitting and I'm on the computer doing work. And that's when I knock things off my schedule. And then we get that time back in the car again. But that's kind of what works for my family. So it's not that like I'm leaving the office at 2:30 and I'm done for the day. It's just kind of working into my days where I can get work done, but also invest time with my family and recognize what are the priorities that I really need to do and what can I delegate to somebody else to do on the team. And I think delegation is also a challenge um, when you're a high performer person and you're a type A and we think that no one can do things better than we can. And so we do feel like everything that comes our way, we have to handle. And that's not necessarily true. And we need to give up this idea that we're the only ones who can do it. And if it's not done my way, then it's not done correctly.
Mhm.
And so I think that's a struggle for a lot of us. And that's an ongoing struggle for sure.
What would you say, and this is just a random question, but if you had to define the most common stressor that impacts you as a private practice owner, like what gets you stressed? Like you're great with time, you're great with management, you always seem like honestly like nothing can phase you. Is there anything that comes up on a frequent basis as a practice owner where you're like, oh, this stresses me, or this makes me question my systems, or it challenges my time assessment, or anything that you find on a regular basis kind of pushes you sometimes past your limit?
Yeah, and it's related to hiring and retention. And I think like we can all relate to that. And that's something that a little bit can be in our control and in terms of trying to figure out how can we improve our culture, how can we retain our employees. But yet some of that is out of our control because trends do show that people aren't staying in a job longer than a year or two. That's just the generation that we have right now. And so that stresses me out because we all can understand how turnover affects the families we serve and the rest of our team. And so that's something that can be really stressful because we just don't know when we're going to find the right people to fill those seats, and they have to be the right people. And sometimes we don't make the right decision with hiring, and that creates even more stress. And so I would say for me that recently over the past couple of years has caused the biggest stress.
Well, and I think what's hard there, we all can validate, hey, people want to move in their life and they want to go and they want to grow and everything. It's that they don't prioritize being transparent with us about what their future looks like. So they're like, I want to be with you forever and I love you and you're the best company. And then they're like, sorry, my husband and I have decided to move to Colorado and I'm giving you 2 weeks notice. You're like, okay, you didn't just figure this out last night. And I feel like if people actually had true authenticity, where they literally felt like they were treating you like their grandmother, and they said, look, Erin, I want to come work for you. You have my commitment for a year. I don't know what the future holds, but I will give you 90 days notice no matter what. If there is any reason, I don't think it would stress you the same. It's that we become the effect of versus being able to create a better outcome. And it's that we care more for the outcome of all that we serve than the people in our practice. And I'm not saying everyone, but that's the stressor. The stressor is when someone prioritizes themselves over the group, and there's no reason. They don't have to. And I always say, if a therapist came to you and said, Erin, I don't know how much longer I have with you. There's a good chance I'm going to leave, but you have my word. I will give you the 3 months. The second I start applying or whatever, I will give you that notice. So you have 3 months to start searching. Would you go fire them? Would you go get rid of them?
Oh, absolutely not.
No. So my viewpoint on this, just to play off the stressor and efficiency and whatnot, is like, why do people feel the need to tell? Like, why aren't people aware enough today that the minute you start accepting interviews, your employer should know there's no benefit to you withholding that information. Like, I'm trying to understand where they see the benefit. And everyone's like, well, they don't want to make things weird and they don't want to make you upset. I'm like, you don't think I'm going to be upset when you give me 2 weeks notice? Like, at the end of the day, like, wouldn't you want me to give you notice? And it's so funny because I just went through this where I had to get rid of someone who didn't make it past their 30-day review. I actually paid them out more time than they worked for me. I gave them 6 weeks pay just to not work for me. And they were like, that's crazy. I'm like, no, because I would have wanted 6 weeks notice if they gave me notice. So I come back to like, part of this is changing the paradigm, but where I find getting back to the question, stress is driven from the fact that we become inefficient or ineffective as a result of someone else, and that we don't have the ability, time, or resources to create the desired outcome because we're the effect versus the cause.
Yeah, and coming from someone who's a planner, it always seems like these situations happen at the worst possible times, right? Like when I'm ready to go to a conference or ready to go on a family vacation or something like that. And it's like, oh my gosh, I thought I had everything planned out, but now I need to shift. And so that's when that would be a priority that I would have to put in place over most other things. And it really derails things. And as owners, there's certain things about recruiting and hiring that we can't delegate, because we are the face of our company, most of us, and we do want to be that first person that someone meets. We do want to be that person who's going to weed out some of those candidates from possibly being part of our team. So yeah, that's I agree with you. If we could just help people understand that communication, transparency, honesty, ongoing communication is so important. Like, we as owners, we want to support you if this is not the right fit. Like, we want you to succeed, even if it means you're going somewhere else. But we can't do that if we don't know what kind of place you're at right now.
I just want people to care for me as much as they want me to care for them, because they all want me to care for them. And I think that's the hardest part of ownership. And people are like, well, why? You're the owner. I go, why do we have to create this like master slave? Like, and I know that's like probably a weird way of saying it, but I feel like there's a hierarchy in business where you're the owner and they're the employee. And I'm like, why can't we co-create at a level of like, I'm an investor, okay, but then I manage this and they do this. Like, their value is important. My value is important. Let's treat each other with that same value. And I'm always surprised how people are scared of me. I don't understand it, honestly. But as we look at time mastery, I think why this comes up is we have trouble delegating time when we don't trust the people or systems that are within our organization. So, any last strategies you want to leave our audience with on how to start this process of time mastery?
Yeah, so it's important to remember that it can't be big changes. That I'm a huge proponent of the compound effect. And so it's these little baby steps. It's these little tiny daily changes that you can make that over time result in really huge effects. So I would say just pick one thing. Just be mindful today, tomorrow, whenever you're listening to this. Be mindful of all the tasks you're doing today, and just pick one that maybe is a task that you're like, gosh, I dread doing this. This is like something I just don't even want to do. That's the first thing that you can get rid of. And instead of thinking, who can I delegate this to? Instead, think, what do I need to do to delegate this? So, meaning, take the task that you don't want to do and then figure out, okay, do I need to write a process? Do I need to record my screen as I'm doing this task to share it to somebody else? Do I need to record myself doing it and then have it transcribed and use AI to come up with a process? And like, what do I need to do so that next week I can give it to somebody else and they can just start doing it for me? It's a baby step. And it's not, again, it's not these huge tasks. Just think of all the little 5 and 10 minute things that you do every day or every week. If you could offload 5 of those 10-minute tasks, that's nearly an hour a week that you can invest in something else. So just take it one little baby step at a time.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for being part of this episode. Where can everyone find you? If they want to learn more from you, Erin, what's the best way for them to learn more and collaborate with you?
Yeah, so I have a Facebook page for AI enhanced time management, and I'm also on Instagram, and my Instagram handle just changed because I leveled up into what I'm calling time management 2.0 to add AI integration into that. So, but you can find me on Instagram or just shoot me an email. It's just Erin@pediatricachievements.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we'll also make sure that Erin's info is in our show notes. And if you have any problems, you can always reach out to me and I'll make that introduction. But I want to thank you, Erin, for joining. And I want to thank you for tuning into this episode of the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast. Don't forget to like us, subscribe, and together we can thrive, not just survive. Thank you for tuning in to the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast. I'm incredibly grateful to each and every one of you. Exciting news. We're now available everywhere, from Spotify to Apple Podcasts to YouTube or anywhere you like to listen to your podcasts. So watch, listen, and reach out. If you love this episode, please drop a 5-star review. It truly means the world to me. Are you looking for more ways to elevate your practice? If so, now is your chance. Reach out, go to my website, or email me at brandon@wellnessworksmp.com. And remember, it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving.